today. It is the summer solstice.
What's your point?
That's half the year, which is 26 weeks, which is 26 podcasts.
2, 3.
And we hardly ever take a break.
4,
There's
5,
never
6,
any
7,
podcast
8,
editions of me
9,
just
10.
being like, I'm sorry, Chad. Everybody else is in the infirmary.
Well, we still went live though, didn't we?
We did.
I'm
That's
still
right.
counting it.
It's either 22 or 23 is which episode of the podcast this is. There
Pretty
are
close.
some in there that were exclusive just for you, Twitch, is what Tyler was trying to sell that as. Just for you, Twitch, and only you will you ever get to have seen that content. It will not be going anywhere else. My name's
These
Adam.
are things that I bought recently. That was what those editions of the podcast were.
They were. There's a cons and things, which I'm guessing won't go live, and I didn't include that one in the count. And there is an off-matter chats about off-matter. I don't think we went live with that one either on the YouTubes. So anyway, hi, chat. Do I need to say it again?
Bless still
My name's
soda.
Adam.
No, you don't need to keep telling people your name's Adam. You did that on that interview earlier on as well. You were like, so my name's Adam. I'm such and such for this role. And then like 10 seconds later, yeah, my name's Adam. My
You
name's
repeat
Adam.
yourself 3 times for people so that they don't have to. It's the Disney rule of information. You provide the same bit of information 3 times in the hope that they remember things.
I get it. I'm just giving you shit.
Well, you're giving me shit incorrectly, so shut the fuck up.
I'm not giving you shit incorrectly.
It is, though. Do you see what I have to put up with, chat? Do you notice Hayley? No one's saying bless Hayley.
They don't need to.
Notice how no
I
one's
am
saying
already blessed.
So, are you guys going to introduce yourself, or are we just going to stand here?
They know who we are. I'm Hayley. That's Tyler. And in case you missed it, that's Adam.
You did miss it. Did anyone catch that I'm Adam? In case, because if not, hi. My name's Adam. Oh, all right. So let's go ahead and get started then. Today we're going to be ranking some experimental roles. We're going to be getting started with the leader that has their own cult, the cult leader. Each day, request to form a cult. If all good people vote on it, the cult forms and your team wins. I'm not sure.
Tyler, do you want to do that like again because he butchered it?
Each night, you become the alignment of an alive neighbor. If all good players choose to join your cult, your team wins.
That's basically what I said. That's basically what I said. I did it off of memory. I was pretty close. What did I get wrong?
Probably just some syntax. We don't have to dwell on what we've gotten wrong in life, right?
No.
I mean,
Reminded of it daily when we speak to Hayley. So anyway, moving on. Cult leader, what do we think about it? Hayley, you go first. Go.
I have the same issue with this that I have with, oh God, what is it? A Flower Girl? Maybe? I'm terrible at the names of these. In that it's not Flower Girl. There's one of them though where it
What
just
is it,
ends
experimental or
with no, not experimental from the base 3.
okay.
It's just constantly, like every single day, you've got this round robin of voting that just kind of makes it feel a bit unfun for me, honestly. And then you'll have like 3 people that all claim, so kind of like the juggler as well, 3 people that all claim to be the cult leader, and then you have to do 3 forming a cult votes, and I just find that kind of tedious. I mean, it changes the way that you win, which I generally like, right? We talked about that with like the mayor and stuff, but it's not, I don't know. I don't see the benefit it has. It's good to bluff, but I don't see the benefit of it to town massively. It just seems kind of annoying to me. I don't want to be a cult leader. I don't want cult leaders in my games. I don't want to storytell with cult leaders in my games. It's DTF for me.
All right, moving on then.
Is that you saying that you agree?
You know, it's see the other role I'm guessing you were talking about is gossip. So I couldn't agree more with how boring as a storyteller and as a player it is to have to run through 6 cults. God, I switch off. How boring it is even to watch on stream where we run through 6 cults. The only time it's fun is when like a person's bluffing as it and they would have succeeded, but they didn't, and it's like, oh, that sucks. You could have had a cult win, and you didn't get to have one because you weren't really the cult leader. Sucks to be you. Funny though, but that's about it. Yeah. Go on, Ty. You going to stick up for this cult leader? Piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree completely with both of y'all, and I think you have a very myopic view of the role. We run it a lot because it is fun. People enjoy it a lot. People enjoy being the cult leader, by and large. Yes, do I think it can get repetitive? That's why I don't. When people call for cults, I do think it can get repetitive. That's why I don't give them. They don't have to give a reason to form a cult. It's just a mechanical function. So the whole that was funny early on. Was this is the cult of this, that, and the other, and if y'all join my cult, I'll give you a ham sandwich. Like that stuff is not useful for me, and I think it gets difficult to watch over and over again as people try to do that. But in general, as a role, it gets really strong mechanical information. It can be very fun to, if you like switching alignments and doing that, playing both sides against the middle and see where you get the best deal. I think that's interesting for a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but a significant portion of people. I think the cult win is obviously, it's very exciting. People have generally enjoyed it when it happens. You can also use the cult leader in interesting ways where if everybody believes the cult leader is what they say they are, when the vote runs, then the one person that stays away has now confirmed themselves. If it comes back around and people believe that cult leader later on, I was the only person who didn't vote. We didn't form a cult. That says that I am a goodie, right? So even if the cult leader turns to evil, that information becomes useful to town. You can do some deduction on that basis. So I think the cult leader is pretty darn good. I don't think it's S tier, but I think it's an A.
I'm not voting on a cult though.
What's that?
Even if I'm good, even if I'm part of town, I'm not voting on a cult.
Well, I mean, I think
because you lack imagination, Hayley, is what Tyler just said. So congratulations for that.
And that's fine. That's fine by me if that's the opinion Tyler wants to form of me. But I don't know. This cult leader wins don't feel fun to me.
I don't think mayor wins are all that fun, so I can see that. I mean, almost all, generally speaking, after the first time I see a thing happen, mayor wins are fun to bluff, I think, but I don't think that they're super fun in general to experience. And I think the same kind of holds true for a lot of conditional wins. I think the first time you see a goblin win, it's pretty interesting. We're going to talk about another role with a conditional game ender. I think they're pretty interesting early on, and then they get less diminishing returns as things go along. So I don't have much disagreement with that. I think sometimes though, town could be in a position where their best option is to go for the cult win, and that can be interesting. A good get out of jail free card for town if they want to take it. But I don't know. It's to me, I think it. Like I said, if you don't vote on it, that's still useful information. If everybody else voted on it, then you've confirmed yourself as good. That's a pretty powerful role for town. Even if the cult leader is evil, that's still powerful information for town. So go ahead and don't vote. Just make sure that as many other people do vote as possible.
But that's the thing, right? You kind of forcing people to vote for something that maybe they don't want to. And you're saying, well, we didn't win just because you didn't vote, kind of thing. And I hate it when that kind of thing comes through. And I feel like it's different to the mayor win, because the mayor just it doesn't drag the game down any. Like, you don't have 3 people claiming mayor and having to run a vote for each one of those claims every day that they choose to do so. So it's the win, the payoff feels more for that player, I think, than it does for a cult leader. Because they've built trust through the game with very little to go on when you're the mayor, really. Whereas a cult, I don't know. Something just feels off about the cult leader for me. I'm struggling to articulate what it is, but I don't enjoy it. I don't think it's terrible. I think, yeah, mechanically, maybe there is good information that you can get out of it, but it doesn't feel good in the time. And somebody in chat said that maybe it's more fun in person than online. And no, it's not. It's less fun, if anything. I think at least online, like, you kind of just click a button and the vote goes around and, oh, well, that's it, right? In person, like, your storyteller has to get out into the middle and, you know, hold the grimoire and put their hands, like, it's tedious. It really is. It's more tedious on person than in line.
That's just because we're lazy. That's just because we're lazy. Tyler,
I'm not lazy. You
Tyler,
speak for yourself.
You raised an amazing point about that information. I think we saw it recently. I can't remember if it was one of our games or if it was one of the other streams I was watching.
I think it was the last game we ran.
Yes, 2 points of really great information to say these two people were good because these two people didn't vote on the cult to win.
Yep.
And therefore that helped them paint the picture.
Tyler and Linksel, and they narrowed it down to the demon.
Yep.
So,
great info. But to go back to your argument about the pit hack, how often do we see it used like that, Tyler? Never do you see it used like that. And if it was good, people would do it like that more often.
They do. You two, I think, are very much avoiding the role. So I don't think you do know the full scope of how it's used or how it's interesting, that kind of thing. When you turn off to a thing and you go, I just don't like this aspect of it. Well, you could run cult leader. You could play cult leader and never call for the formation of a cult. Would you be a kind of a low rent empath at that point? Yes, but you could do it, right? You can get information out of a cult and never have a cult form in two ways, right? So it's got multiple ways of generating information. It can be very interesting if you like to play alignment shifting roles. And, you know, if you want to take advantage of the conditional game ender, you can. So I think all of those things objectively say that the role is better than a C role or a B role, right? Because you have multiple ways to get information and you have a conditional game ender. It can be negative for town because the alignment shifting aspect of it, and so how some people play it. But if you play cult leader and you go, what are the odds that the evil that's next to me is the demon? Don't know. I'll get them killed, right? And then I'll turn back to another alignment. You could do that. You're taking a risk. So I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can play the role, and I think it does. I've seen it played in a lot of different ways. I've seen it run the gamut of different things.
I've watched a lot of games, and Ty, I think I've run plenty of games in person as well as out with the cult leader.
With the cult leader,
yeah,
right.
Yeah. That's where my tedium is coming from with it. That we've seen it in a lot of games. I don't think I've ever seen anybody say, I love being the cult leader.
Well, Linksel said it 4 times the other night, so I don't know.
Okay, Linksel is the one exception that proves my rule that nobody enjoys cult leader.
Where do you think it should be then, Tom?
I enjoy playing the cult leader. I've seen a lot of people. I mean, you know, but like I said, I mean, y'all have a strong response to it, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and negate that. I'm telling you all the ways that it can be useful for town. I'm telling you all the ways that people enjoy playing it. And if you haven't seen that yourself, then I can't argue with it. I'm just giving you instances of when that is the case. I think it's better than y'all are giving it credit for.
I'm not disputing that it's good information, that it can be good for town. I know that's what I originally said, but yeah, I actually agree with you thinking about the information that it does get objectively. Yes, could get objectively. Yes, it's good information. It just doesn't take away any of the tedium for me for it at all. So it's never, ever going to be S. You might get me to a B+ on it.
Well, where do you think it should be, Tyler, is what I asked a couple of minutes ago. Where do you think it is?
Like I said before, I don't think it's an S role. I think it probably could constitute an A. But if y'all feel that strongly about it, I mean, it can go in the B, and I won't lose any sleep over it. I just think it's better than the scrap heat. You know, I think people do enjoy it. I can understand. I do find running a lot of cult votes tedious in any setting, right? But that's something I think you can kind of talk to your players about as a storyteller. Like, I get it. It's fun. Y'all are all bluffing it. It's great. You know, we don't need the big long exposition ahead of running the vote.
I mean, I disagree with that. I think the cult leader does have to come up with that exposition to justify to people why they should be thinking, we trust this person, this, like, they need to have a chance to talk about it. But I think that's a different kettle of fish. We don't need the, why do you want to join my cult? But the why do you want to join my cult is no different to me to saying, justify your nomination. Like, why should this cult pass is like the same sort of thing. But a lot of people have turned it into a meme, like, oh, because I give people guns and this is America, right? Like, that was the one we heard for a while on our channel, right? I hear what you're saying, Ty. I do hear what you're saying about it could be useful. You can run into games where it's useful. You can run into situations, but I would say it's absolutely a B at best. It is like everything you just argued against this after watching back and editing the pit hag discussion that we had on our latest YouTube video. Go back and watch our podcast video that just went up this past week, or Monday, sorry. Go ahead and watch Tyler's argument for why the pit hag is not anything more than a B, and it is basically the same thing as the cult leader. You're like, the cult leader.
You're conflating. No, you're conflating two different arguments. Being on the evil team is part of being a team. You need to work with certain parameters to work effectively as a team. You are outnumbered. You have as much information as you're going to get. You're going to cultivate the rest of the information from the people that you talk to. The good team knows nothing, and they have to use their mechanics and conversations to cultivate more information. The cult leader, being a good role, a townsfolk role, gathers information. A pit hag's job is to do what its demon what's going to be best for its demon to survive. And instead, pit hag players tend to not do that. They tend to get off on the novelty of, I can do this, that, and the other in a 4 to 5 step plan that's never going to come to fruition. And instead, my demon's left out hanging and they die. Right? That's my case against the pit hag. The cult leader's job is to get information. I just listed 2 vectors to do that and a conditional game ender for the good team. That is totally different so whatever you supercut you edit of me talking about the pit hag, those do not resemble each other. They're not even the same ballpark.
All right. A, it can go then. Let's move on to something else.
We can go on the B. It's fine. I'm not that tore up about it, but I just think that some of that's irrelevant. My opinions on the pit hag. Anyway, the engineer, once per game. Is that what we're next?
Damsel next.
I got Damsel. Oh yeah, I like the Damsel. All right. All minions know you are in play. If a minion publicly guesses you once, your team loses. So we got to talk about the Huntsman too, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Huntsman's up next after this. Yep.
Got it.
So Damsel,
Do we do like we did with Choirboy and King and read out Huntsman as well?
Is that what we did for that? I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. We did.
Go for it then.
Okay. I need to find it so that I have the actual text and don't have to guess my way through it. Huntsman, once per game at night, choose a living player. The damsel, if chosen, becomes a not in play townsfolk plus the damsel.
I don't really know what to make of the damsel. I haven't seen enough games where it's actually been useful. I know it's supposed to be an outsider, and therefore it's not supposed to be useful for town. But the downside, I mean, it adds a new win condition for evil, which I guess gives it some props for evil's case. But the downside is if you get it wrong, evil's just outed itself, which seems good for good, and therefore against the point of the outsider. So I'm not 100% sure where to put the damsel because of that issue. If I'm honest, I'm not 100% sure. It feels like it's got a lot of sway where it can be great for good. You get another role in town. It turns an outsider into a townsfolk. It becomes, like, especially if you're like, I've seen people do that where it turns into one of the demon bluffs, for example, which gives it more information. I've seen people do that. I'm not sure if I agree with that play either, but I've seen people do it. So I'm not 100% sure really where to put the damsel. If it is in that A tier or if it's in that B tier, but a lot of things are going into B tier. I don't think it's C because it's a good evil bluff. You'll know evil. It gives minions a bluff. Like if they know it's not in play, they now have a bluff that they can go with. So as an outsider, again, it's got that extra downside for good players for that purpose. So I think it's more than a C, but I don't know between A and B. I don't think it's S, but maybe you can make a better argument for me. Sorry, chat. How about that? Is that better? I'll just have to remember at this point at 29 minutes into the recording, I need to make an adjustment to turn my volume down when I come to edit this. Carry on, though, Ty.
Oh, I, based on the vector of the damsel alone, in terms of how good it is for the evil team, when we start looking at these outsiders in the experimental set, I think there's really only one. There's one that definitely is, well, maybe two, that are better than the damsel. I like the conditional game ender aspect of the damsel. I like the way that it makes a lot of people play. I like the fact that it gives information to the evil team, to where the minions immediately know at least one of the outsiders that's in play. All that makes me feel like it's I would kind of put it in the A tier for outsiders. I had an interesting discussion with Andrew, who's on our channel sometimes, but does a lot of stuff behind the scenes for us, about the Huntsman and how god awful a role it is. That it basically its function is to add an outsider, most likely, and then maybe turn it back into a townsfolk if it guesses right. So it's gotta. But the Huntsman knows some stuff too. It knows there's a damsel out there in play. Anyway, so I think the damsel is a pretty good outsider for the evil team to have around and to take advantage of. I think you can really, if you keep the damsel alive long enough, and you feel like your demon is definitely about to go down, then that's when you make your guess. If you try to make it too early, then I think you're going to be in a rough spot.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like chat thinks it's an S tier. So Tapir is saying Damsel's S. Tyler, who plays with us on stream, is saying it gives evil an extra way to win. It explains double claims and it obscures the outside account. I think that's a really good point. That is kind of what outsiders are supposed to do, which probably makes it an S tier outsider. Like it's not really. Yeah, it's a hidden outsider, so it's not bluffable, so we don't have to really consider that. Like, it doesn't kind of mess with anything from a storyteller perspective either. It's one of those roles you can just kind of throw in with the Huntsman. It's not gonna... It can probably go on any script, the Damsel and the Huntsman. I don't think they're gonna mess with too much.
And you can run the Damsel without having the Huntsman. I'm sorry, my bad.
No, I don't think it's gonna... I can't comment on how fun it is to play. I've never played as either Damsel or Huntsman. But it does seem like a pretty good outsider, especially if it can potentially be turned to townsfolk.
Yeah, I've only played against it once. I was a minion on its reveal game, I believe. I was the minion and Ben Burns was the damsel, and Ben Burns had claimed to us that he was the amnesiac, I believe it was, and then put himself on the block on day one, and I was like, oh, that's suspicious, Ben. I mean, I trust that you know how to make me doubt that you're the damsel, but that was still suspicious, and I called him out. I said, minion, Ben's the damsel, and we won on day one. But there's still that moment where that's my only problem with it, which brings it down for me, is like the negative impact it can have on evil. It could be quite a lot. Is my only problem with it. Like, you have a chef pair, chef 1 in a 9-player game with a damsel in play, and the minion guesses wrong early. It's game over for evil, basically. That is my only issue with it, and as that's the only thing I can really find as a problem with it. That's the only thing I can think about as a problem with it. I'm still trying to wrap my head if there is any other issues with damsel. All the other problems, like chat says, comes from Huntsman rather than damsel, and like you said as well, Ty, from Andrew, like everything else, the problems with damsel is really more of a Huntsman issue. So yeah, I think I'm okay with it in A. I don't know that you can go S though. I don't know.
Really?
Just because of that problem. Because of the danger it puts on evil. I just don't know. I mean, I guess if evil just ignores it, but then it removes its win condition for evil, and therefore, is it as good if you remove that win condition? I don't know again.
It's about like how much you are looking for style points versus whether or not you want to use this as an escape hatch. If I'm looking, one of the things that tears me up as a storyteller the most are games in which the minions are looking around, They know that their demon is on the block, and they didn't even bother to guess, right? Like, just you know you're about to lose. Might as well put something out there. And they didn't even in that instance. Those are the ones that burn me up the most, because if you want to take we saw that in it's a little bit of a different scenario because we were running Blind Man's Bluff, and Ash had gotten a claim from Capelli that sounded a little bit like an outsider of some kind, and she reached out. She was about to be executed, and she goes, "If any of my minions want to know, I think Capelli's the damsel." Right. And, so that was pretty funny. And that pulled out the win for the evil team. But I mean, that's a very edge case. I grant you. But some of those things with the double claim, like covering up double claims, I think that can always benefit evil. If that's something that people excuse away because, there's a damsel on this script, or there may be one in play. Nobody's going to want to do that.
Can't push it too hard just in case, right? Yeah.
Yep. And I think a lot of that, though I will say that the other flip side of that is that a lot of damsels are going to want to get themselves executed.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you're looking at people who are looking to get executed, that might lend you to believe it's a damsel, and then you've lost your chance. But you still get a lot of benefit out of it being in the game as an evil player. I mean, I would agree with you. I think it's maybe more of an A. As I look at some of the other outsiders we're going to come up against, namely like the politician and the snitch down the line, I think the politician definitely is.
I really thought you were going to go puzzle master. I can't believe you went politician. Like, we need to talk. I'm looking forward to talking about that. I love the puzzle master, but I
love the puzzle master. I don't think it's great for evil all the time.
Okay, good point.
We've seen two instances, and I think the puzzle master is closer to a townsfolk than an outsider in some ways, because you can run it. You can play it to where you learn basically a good player automatically. As it's written, and then you can run it, or you learn who the demon is if you guess well enough, if you look at the circumstance. Anyway, we're not talking about puzzle.
Save it for the puzzle.
Yeah, save it. So I'll save it. Anyway, cut that out. But I think Damsel is an A tier outsider, but I would not be upset. I love the Damsel. It would be, if it was in the S, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm running this bad boy.
I really think so. Just to sort of circle back to what you said, Adam, about it feels bad for the minions if they guess too early. Isn't that the same for the Slayer? Like, where did we put the Slayer? Wasn't that S?
I don't know, but it's different. But it's supposed to be an outsider, which is supposed to be negative for town. Is the point? Hey.
Yeah, but
she's talking about the minions still get the Slayer. I mean, essentially a Slayer-like ability.
Yeah,
right, for free.
Exactly. Like, if you're a Slayer who, is killed on night 2 and didn't get to use your ability yet, like, that's still the same kind of.
All right, so here's what we're doing in this one. In this one, I have got all the experimental characters up on stream. So right now, let's stick it up in A. Let's stick it up in S, sorry. We'll stick it up in S for now. But I want to make a note, and I'm going to edit this back into a future video at one point. When we come to review Puzzle Master, Snitch, and Politician. There are points there that we're going to have to rediscuss.
Sure. Provisional S.
Oh, not that one. That one. So can I just leave the Huntsman down in C, though?
I think Huntsman's probably a C roll. Unless you do. So what's funny about the one instance that you gave in which it made the Huntsman really powerful, was when you gave the damsel, a demon bluff, right? So I think that was there to try to make the Huntsman feel less marginalized in that game, because otherwise they're just like, they know a piece of information. Unless they're drunk, there's a damsel. They want, if they pick the right person, the damsel becomes something cool. As long as they didn't add an outsider, that's a net positive for town, right? Because you could play the Huntsman where it doesn't add an extra outsider. It just
but the Huntsman could have been that fun townsfolk to begin with, right?
Yeah, sure. Yes. I think I will agree with you. I think I agree with all the sentiments there that the Huntsman is flawed. So I like the damsel a lot. And so I put the Huntsman on those scripts. You don't need the Huntsman on a script if you want to put the damsel. It's not like the King Choir Boy, but it does make it a little bit more fun if you do. Because the damsel is going to be a little less suicidal. Let me put it that way, right? The Huntsman they were like, well, maybe I'll find my Huntsman and get to turn into something. We did an interesting thing in one of the Legacy games where the damsel got to pick a when they were selected by the huntsman, and they got to pick these paths, and they actually became a role that wasn't on that script, and it got added to the script mid-game, which was pretty fun. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think the huntsman's C. Anything
to add, Hayley, on the huntsman? Anything else?
No, I think it's the C as well. I mean, chat's nailing it as well. Like it acts like an outsider. It's not. It really doesn't feel townsfolky.
It almost should be an outsider, shouldn't it? Really, because even as Pat is saying, the huntsman as possibly the best outsider in the game for evil with a low percentage chance of actually removing it. It almost sounds like an outsider in itself. It's It could be an outsider that adds another outsider.
I think that makes sense. Probably would be the play. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that would bump it up, I think, considerably if it was an outsider that adds another outsider.
It really would be. It really would be.
A outsider.
That could potentially get rid of an outsider, which is
it's balanced, right? It's good for town. It's good for evil. That's what you want from an outsider.
Yeah. All right.
We did see a game. I ran a game at Decepticon in which the huntsman found the damsel, and then they turned the damsel into the fisherman, and then like the advice I gave the fisherman was way like, I was like, oh, this was I knew it when I said huntsman. It was too much. No, it was something about like evil didn't originally know who each other were or something like that, and they were just like, oh yeah. Anyway, it was a whole thing. Anyway, Huntsman C. What are we on to next?
Engineer is next, which is once per game at night, choose which minions or which demon is in play. Engineer.
So powerful.
I don't have much experience with this, but on the face of it, it does sound really quite powerful. I mean, if you can flip the demon to something that's like less devastating for town, like maybe you've got a Poe charging up, like there's been no deaths, and you're like, fuck that Poe, let's get something else out, right? It's not going to kill 3 people tonight. Screw that, or tomorrow night rather.
It's we talk about player agency and the fun it can give. Sorry, Tyler, this isn't supposed to be me talking. I know it's supposed to be you right now. But I just want to say that's the great thing about the engineer is it gives a player that really... You have to put the engineer on a great script that either has really terrible evil teams, like even balanced... You need to put an engineer on a script with a balanced choice to make it, do they go after the minions or do they go after the demons, in my opinion. You can't just give them a straightforward choice. Well, it's either a Poe or a Zomball. Fuck, I know I'm changing everything into the Zomball then. Like, you just can't do that. You've got to give it a balanced script, and that's one thing I just wanted to add. But go ahead, Ty, I didn't mean to take your space.
Well, that was exactly what I was about to say. Is you basically
stole it.
You basically have to build. He stole it right from my brain pan. You have to build the entire script around the engineer. I mean, at least from the evil team's perspective, if the minions are less attractive to alter than the demon, then you'd never do it. If the demons are unbalanced, then they're always going to have a clear choice. So you really have to like do some weird stuff. And even then, even if you make the choice, I mean, I've seen some engineer picks that fizzled, but generally speaking, like they just wreak so much havoc to the evil team. And if you have other roles on the script, like the alchemist or, alchemist especially, because the alchemist basically confirms that the engineering happened, right? So for it to be an evil bluff, right? The engineer and the alchemist is on the script or something like that, then the engineer and the alchemist basically have to be in cahoots, the false alchemist and engineer. It's a tough one. I guess it's somewhat easy to bluff, right? If you want to say, like, I turn the demon into this, but then you're no longer particularly useful to town and they might just execute you. I don't know how good it is as a bluffing role. It is very powerful as a in-play townsfolk role. Maybe a little bit too much for my taste, but anyway.
Yeah, so that's some of the things that chat's saying as well. It's poor bluff for evil, can't be on most scripts because it is so strong. There's no way to really counter it, which makes it less fun as well. So all of that probably really does drag it down, despite it being on the face of it like, oh yeah, this is like a crazy powerful ability. Like when you actually put those crazy powerful abilities into play, they can kind of make it unfun.
It's a bad it's a bad bluff for a demon. It's not a bad bluff for evil though. Like an evil townsfolk or an evil minion, etc. Obviously, an evil minion. Maybe I should stop spoiling things. An evil minion, for example, is fine as a bluff for them. You've already talked about like an engineer and an alchemist could be a fantastic minion double combination bluff if they can be coordinated. Chance is going to be coordinated is not high though. But
You basically have to hand it to him as a storyteller. You basically say, these are your bluffs. I'm going to say them very slow. Alchemist, engineer, and whatever the fuck else you want. So, you know.
And what were you never bluff verbs? Virgin. Right. No John Cop Boys on the script. No, in all seriousness.
Tyler. Yeah. Anyway.
And paths don't exist. Yeah. I don't know. So I think as I'm looking at it, I couldn't justify to myself putting the engineer in C. It's got such a great ability for good on the right script. I think it's fun to bluff as a minion. I think you could you can throw shade on, even if an alchemist is in play. Even if an alchemist is in play, you could throw shade at that alchemist by bluffing as the engineer and saying, "Well, I changed stuff last night, and you're saying you didn't change, so I know you're full of shit." You know? Do you know what I mean? You can throw shade on them being good or evil. You know, like
Hatters is made a good point. Bluffing a boom dandy bluffing engineer is quite strong. I think that's kind of great, right?
Yeah.
And I think you would probably want both of those on the script, but again, that comes back around to it's limited as to which scripts it can go on. But
Yes.
boom dandy and an engineer on the same script would be quite funny, I think.
Well, the funny thing about an engineer on a boom dandy script with a boom dandy and an engineer in play is that that person who everybody wants to execute on day one, or like two people specifically want to execute on day one, you go,
Suddenly don't want to.
let's just wait on that for a second. We'll just table that for now. Alrighty, I think we can execute him today. why is that, Adam?
Damsel on that
No real reason. Let's just go ahead and get him dead.
yeah. Yep.
Anyway, yes, I think there are some interesting scripts you can build around the engineer, but you are building it around that role.
Yeah, well, you can build a script and it turns out actually the engineer would work out really funny on this and has a couple of good interactions. But I do hear what you're saying, right? There are scripts where the engineer is going to shine on, and there are scripts where it's going to do nothing. So for that reason, I can't put it S, but I still can't put it C for that reason either, right? It has to be A or B, and I don't know where between those two it is. Again, it's a fun character. On the right script, it's an S. On the wrong script, it's a C. So it puts it in B.5. It really does put it in B.5 for me. I just don't know where else to put it. B.5, a new terminology.
I think it's kind of in that space, right? It's one of those things like when we talked about some other roles that are so powerful they don't contribute to the fun in all the instances. But I think it is fun to be the engineer, I imagine. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you probably want to put it in A or low or high B.
Yeah, well the problem is I'm looking at it going, it's better than these other characters that are in B. Look at it. It's better than these characters in B. So I've got to put it in A for that reason personally.
Okay.
I mean, it could come down again.
Power alone, I think you're probably right there.
But like on the wrong, I could picture people's experiences of the engineer being very negative in the wrong group scripts.
Well, I think we put Alchemist in B not because it's not powerful. We put it because it's something that you have to really build the whole thing around, and I think the same argument holds true for the engineer. I feel like they're a pair. I know they're not a pair, but they are of a same kind to me in my mind.
I think it's different though, because I think there are less minions you want to make an alchemist being, is the difference. So there's less things that you really want out there an alchemist having the option of being, versus, or to break the game if you make the alchemist that. Like, not break the game is the wrong term, but just make it significantly less fun for everyone else if the engineer is that. And you've got to get rid of the engineer early to check that they're not just the pit hack being a douchebag out in public, right?
Yeah.
I think the alchemist has more opportunity to make it less fun than the engineer, whereas the engineer would more likely just have a less fun game themselves on the wrong script, whereas the alchemist can make it a less fun game for everyone else. I think that's the difference.
I think I think the engineer is fine at A. I think it's hard to argue with its potency and how much fun it is for the player. Some of those other things that we talked about, I'm less convinced on as you are, but we can try it. We can play around with it. I would challenge people to make engineer scripts that make the engineer just a part of the cast, not something that you have to focus on. So
Okay. Next up
put
is
that in
Farmer.
the comments down below.
Is this me now? I think it's me, right?
Sure.
Farmer. If you die at night, an alive, good player becomes a farmer. Because you're growing crops, sowing seeds, growing crops.
Sowing seed. Turning swords into plowshares, baby. I really like the farmer. Farmer is tough. I think it's a step below Ravenkeeper, though. I mean, actually, it's probably I'm really torn. I think it's a step below the Ravenkeeper in terms of what it adds to the game and the experience of it. But I do think it's neat to have that role that kind of confirms people and what that can give to the storyteller to do and those decisions. We've had some farmer games where a lot of the game hinged on who the storyteller turned into the farmer after the initial farmer died. So I think that's a pretty interesting choice to get to make as a storyteller. And it can be fun for those players, but it's probably not as good as a Ravenkeeper, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it's a really farmer. Like, I remember the first time I put a farmer on a custom script with other characters that I can't talk about, but I remember the first time I put it on a custom script, and the negative reaction the player had to being it was like, this is terrible. Like, Ravenkeeper, I get to find out information. Sage, I get to find out information. What do I care about? Like, oh, this person's okay, I've now turned them from a useful dreamer role into a farmer, right? Like, it's not there are lots of situations where I just don't know about the farmer. I feel like this is personally, I'm going to say this and I know you're going to hate me.
Who, me or Tyler?
Tyler. I feel like the farmer's a C role. I know there is a good thing that another good player now becomes the farmer. You two now have this little trust circle. I picture it on a script with a spy, no longer a trust circle. I picture it on you got to think about when the farmer's going to die. 9-player game, likely to die when there's 5 or less players around. One of those happens to be the recluse or something. Broken again. Like, there are situations where to me the farmer just isn't. There's a lot of situations where the farmer isn't going to be useful. I know this maybe is hypocritical after we just talked about the engineer, but the engineer has control and agency and fun over what it does and the selection. But the farmer doesn't have any control over what happens with its thing. It's just trying to die at night and then doesn't do anything fun for itself after that point, whereas the other ones do.
So I'm going to make 2 cases for you, both of which are going to convince you, Adam.
Okay.
A, control is an illusion. Our control over our lives and what we can do is all bullshit. Don't buy into it. Go with the flow, baby. All right, but in real talk, the farmer, if it only goes off once, that is pretty useful information.
Really?
If the new farmer, well, yeah, because you know that if that person was in the running as a demon candidate, they're not now, right? If you go to that person,
you do,
huh?
You do. You know it's that. You know that now, right? And I guess that's the same for like Ravenkeeper and Sage as well. You now know that person's in the deal.
You know, yeah, you're having to trust that person's information with a Ravenkeeper, right? They come out final day and go, "I died last night, and I sure picked Hayley," and wow, you're gonna be amazed at what I saw, right? Like, come on. The farmer is a similar type of thing. In that case, it says this person is no longer a demon candidate or an evil candidate. I guess they could have been the spy, right? So there's that. But they're no longer a demon candidate, which is what a lot of the game centers around. The other side of it is if you don't make that public information, it's a little bit better as a Ravenkeeper in this way, is that, well, that chain can continue.
Yes.
Right? So, you don't make a big to-do about it. You go and confirm that with, somebody confirms it with you at some point, and you're just going, okay. But then that person is still, like, making waves. They were the dreamer. They're still making waves that they were dreaming stuff, right? Well, now the demon takes them out. You got another farmer, right? And so now the loop gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that can be super detrimental to the evil team and kind of fun because you're kind of trying to figure out where the farmer jumped to. If you're impatient about it, obviously you're not going to get that because now you've made a public to do. Who turned into a farmer last night? That kind of deal. But
yeah.
In any case, I think that can be pretty interesting in how you play it. As a bluff with the evil team, right? You have an interesting thing, especially like if you want to make a Vigor Mortis script, You've got a lot of ability if you have farmer as a bluff to go. The minion dies at night. He comes, or they come and they say, at some point I was the farmer, and I confirmed that so and so. I've confirmed with the person that turned into the farmer, in the intervening days, and that's a potent bluff to be able to use on certain scripts. You don't need a vigor mortis to do it, but it becomes a lot more mechanically fun if you have a vigor on the script, or if you're a vigor in play, and you're killing your minions off at night. So, I mean, I think those things can be pretty interesting and useful as well. I think it's a little bit better than, I think it's a fair amount better than a C, but just because the chain can continue and there's interesting ways to play it outside of the binary way of handling it.
Yeah. So there's two counter arguments to that from me, Ty. The first one being, I think the farmer is only going to gain that trust of multiple players if multiple people die and gain the farmer ability. I don't think a two-person trust chain on the farmer isn't going to make me believe the farmer information and what the person had previously is before they became the farmer and now got no information for the next 3 nights. I don't think that's going to make me trust them any more than a Raven Keeper saying, okay, yep, this person told me their role, that's exactly what I saw. Or I told Capelli this is the person I saw as the Raven Keeper. Capelli confirmed them for me that was their role. I think there are other trust circles that I would trust more than the and would be better for town than the farmer, just because the farmer now has replaced that ability of whatever that person. Unless you replace a butler or a tinker or something, right? There are roles that are going to be better.
That was a storyteller choice, right? The storyteller chose.
It depends what's alive in the game at the time,
I think
right?
the dreamer is pretty much useless after night 2 anyway. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, I'm not being facetious. I mean, and there's a fair number of people that agree with me. But the dreamer's much less useful as the game goes on. But yeah, if it turns an outsider into a farmer, that's a huge benefit for town.
Yeah, sure, could be,
and changes the experience of that player, adding to the fun.
Could be.
Think, this seems really divisive. Even with chat, the opinions are very much split. Either they love farmers or they hate farmers. Is this real life?
As someone from rural Alabama, we are a hated people. The entire news media.
That's not why they hate Alabama, Ty.
And they don't like our monster trucks.
So
hold on, I hadn't finished.
I hadn't finished either.
But I was talking, and you guys what? Go on then.
No.
Okay, no, carry on. What were you saying?
No, Hayley, go ahead.
The second part,
Hayley,
part I wanted to make.
You hadn't given your second counter.
The second part I wanted to make was that people saying the trust circle is only going to be a trust circle because your players haven't done enough to cause chaos and lack of trust for the farmers. What Tyler talks about, evil team bluffing as it, creating that thing, the more that happens and the more evil players break it, we're going to trust it less like we do the Raven Keeper, less like we do the Empath, less like we do everything else, unless you get that 3 or 4 person trust bounce, right? No spy on the script, something else like that can cause it to happen. I'm just saying.
Trust rhombus is hard to break. But you're saying you have to, one thing that you are trying to pose to say, well, maybe it's not as good as you think, requires a spy. If I were to say, the version's not as great as you think, a spy could proc it, right? Well, I mean, that just goes to show you that the Virgin's pretty cool because you have to have a specific role, right, to make it less viable. And the same thing here, holds true for the farmer. It's pretty potent unless you have a certain set of circumstances for the evil team that can undermine it, right? So if you've got a trust rhombus versus a trust circle, right? You got 3 or 4 people that have turned into farmers. Well, I guess it's good if you have a spy in that midst. I mean, yeah, sure.
Go on, H.
I kind of want to see a pit hag on a farmer and the demon bluffing. Another minion bluffing as farmer, and then the demon kills that minion, and then the pit hack turns a townsfolk into a farmer, and then they just leave that person alone, and they've got this sort of evil trust of farmers with somebody on the townsfolk side. And if they leave that farmer alone, they won't gain any more farmers to compromise the circle.
And I think that's the other thing as well. When I would be playing on a script with a farmer, I am watching to see who's going, okay, I just died last night. Hey, the next person's hey, Johnny, can we talk today? Like, I think there are situations where you're just going to be watching as an evil player to see who you do and don't kill. And maybe good players need to pick up on that and start being like, well, I'm the fortune teller. Someone died last night. Hey, Steve, can we talk? You know, everyone that I play with is male and white named. So, like... No, but that's...
7 Rogers in his group.
They've all got beards, yeah.
Yeah.
Ravenkeeper for social players.
I just don't think it is.
Not really.
No, the Ravenkeeper's got
I
more
agree
control
with
on as
that.
a social game. As a social game, as a Ravenkeeper, you're trying to figure out who you're going to pick to select. That's a social game for me.
No, but that's I guess. No, I think it is a Ravenkeeper, but for social players,
It's a
because you don't have the control. You don't have the control.
It's a
over
Ravenkeeper for
where
people that don't
it
want to play social games, Hayley. It's because they don't have any social control over what they're doing or getting with their information.
Okay, you keep conflating control with social interactions, and I think that's telling us a lot about you right now, Adam. Let's talk about this. Let's nail down deeper, but after
Please
the
do.
podcast is over.
Okay, fine.
Social ability is
Which is
about
now, it's 2 p.m. End it.
now you're sitting there and getting to the social aspect of the farmer is finding the person that turned into you, right? Or believing the people that come to you and go, because you could, if you had a hunch that someone was the farmer, you could go to them and be like, hey, were you the farmer? Why, yes. Well, let me tell you what, right? And you could make that shit up, right?
Totally.
And so now we don't see it as much. You know, it'd be interesting if we did. Anyway, yeah, I think it's. I mean, we've harped on it a while. I think it's. According to Chad, obviously, it's. There's strong opinions. We have strong opinions both directions. I mean, I don't actually think it's an S or anything, so I guess my opinion's not that strong. I don't think it's a C. I think it's on par with the Ravenkeeper and the Sage, which I think we already put in A's and B's, so that's where I think it is.
Nope.
The chat's making me laugh today. Adam's therapy is Patreon-only content.
That's right.
Yeah.
Control.
And just $60 a month.
Get it.
You can hear what I think about. You know,
The world at large.
you could hear about my daddy issues. So, A or B? Where are we? I think we just leave it there for now, and we'll fight over it next week.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I just don't know where. I can't. Like, I'm really struggling to put it in A. I'm really struggling. To put it in A.
I think B is probably. Where did we put Ravenkeeper?
I think Ravenkeeper went A and Sage went B, if I remember correctly. Let me.
Yeah,
That's
I think
gonna be-
that's probably about right.
That's going to be not each night. Once and passive.
Yeah.
Oh no, they both went in B.
Yeah, I think
I think it's
we put
probably
it
a
in
B.
too.
All right. Yeah, I thought it was the other way around. I thought so. That's why I was like somewhere between the two. But hey, if we think Ravenkeeper and Sage is B, I don't see how Farmer can go anywhere else either. All right, I don't think we've got time for Fearmonger, right? No. I know we started a bit late, but I got a call in 5 minutes. So.
It's a C.
Fearmonger's a S.
It's a C. You don't think it's an S? You don't believe that?
I fucking love
Oh
the
man,
Fearmonger.
we started next
You're
week with a
serious?
fight.
I love the Fearmonger. Who doesn't love the Fearmonger?
It's like he put this list together to sit here and have us. No, Fearmonger's awful.
And
A roll that gets no value.
You just like telling everybody that Fearmonger has chosen.
That's so bad.
Who doesn't like the Fearmonger? I
What
can't
are we
wait
gonna
to
do?
talk about
Everybody nominate themselves, please. No, fuck that.
this. Well, I wouldn't let that happen.
Stupid ability. Yeah,
Agreed.
you can't.
Yeah.
What a cliffhanger.
Anyway,
Let's
next
leave
week
it
we'll talk
there.
about
What a
the
cliffhanger, for
Fearmonger.
real. And in case you missed it at the beginning of this is six months since we started this podcast.
Allegedly.
Thanks for being here.
No one's got any evidence of that.